I don't know about you guys, but I am exhausted. I know you have to be, but I will promise you I would trade for your place any day of the week just to sit down. I know you're tired of hearing me talk because I'm tired of hearing me talk, but we're going to have a lot of fun. Guys, just give me 20 more minutes, 20 more minutes of your time, and I'll even try to beat that if you'll help me out here. Guys, you know, we have shown you everything from new compensation plan, new technology, new back office, new product, -5, even a little bit of a cultural, shift. The only way that we can really make the biggest impact in the world is to be able to afford to do that, and so we need to grow. And so we've shared lots and lots of things in regards to Viridian 2.0. But the fact of the matter is, that's only half of Viridian 2.0. Yeah. You see, you are the other half of Viridian 2.0. And I'm sure by now that you are probably going, oh my goodness, how in the world am I ever going to retain all of the information I just got flooded with? I mean, wasn't it kind of like drinking from a fire hose? I mean, I've never tried it, but I can imagine what it's like. Now, some of you last night looked like you were drinking from a fire hose, but I mean, and Joe, I didn't say anything about you, Joe. Where's Joe at? But it's so much information that you get overwhelmed, and it's like, how am I ever going to retain all this, and how am I ever going to do this? I don't think I can do it now. Before I came here, I thought, man, you know what, I have a shot, I have a chance. But now there's so much information and so much change and so much transition and so many details and so much logistics and all these things that it's questionable. What I want you to know is that it is not questionable. And that this is not an emotion. It's not a theory, guys. It's a fact. You, yes, you, no matter how young you are, how old you are, whether you're black, white, yellow, brown, red, doesn't matter, or green with this group. It doesn't matter how you were raised, how you weren't raised, whether you have money, don't have money. It doesn't matter. You, beyond a shadow of a doubt, can do this, and here's why. There's an ancient proverb that says there is a power inside of you that is able to do exceedingly, abundantly, beyond all that you can ask, think, or imagine. And it's according to the power that works within us. And some of you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Yeah, I thought you would. But it's hard to believe because we get caught up in our daily lives of the struggle and the failure, and we forget that you have to fail your way to success. And we forget all the mindset and the why and all those things. Because I'm going to go take you all the way back to the first session. It's all about the first step. It's about your why. It's about your dream. That's what it's about. That's the first thing. I'm going to tell you a few stories today, and I hope that you can relate to them because you'll probably feel somewhat like these guys or like these gals. And you're going to help me out here. I'm going to tell you the story and see if you know who I'm talking about. These two young guys were absolutely busted financially. They were broke to the point that they had this big, huge dream, this huge why. They had a passion to change the world. That was his dream. And he believed in his dream so much that he sold the only car he owned and was on foot. Didn't have a penny to his name. convinced his best friend at the time to sell his HP calculator, and combined the Volkswagen van and the calculator, they had $1,300 to start their small company. Who knows who I'm talking about? Stephen Jobs. How in the world did they build the largest company in the world? You want to know how? They had a why. And they believed that there was a power inside of them that was able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that they can ask, think, or imagine. But you see, it's not just them. There were two teenage boys in Seattle, Washington that came up with this dream. They had this brilliant idea. They had a passion. And they wanted to start a company, but they were just young kids. And they said, look, here's what we're going to do, Mommy. We're going to put baskets on our bicycles, on the front of the handlebars, and little bells on them, and little flags in the back, and baskets on the back. We used to call them sissy bicycles. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about. And they had this brilliant idea to go to one business and pick up a parcel or a box, put it in their basket, and ride their bicycle across town, deliver it to another business, and charge them for that. Their office was underneath a culvert. You know those big pipes, those drainage culverts that go underneath sidewalks or roads? These little kids would get underneath there, and that's how they would divvy up their money. Who knows who I'm talking about? Can you imagine their parents when they told them their idea? How cute. I can just hear her now, their mother. They never imagined they would become UPS with a market cap a few years back of $190-something billion. Really? They were kids underneath a sidewalk in a culvert. But they had a dream, and they believed that there was a power inside of them that was able to do exceedingly abundantly. I hope I can get through this today. Beyond all that they could ask, think, or imagine. But it's not just those guys. Some of you remember the story of a guy by the name of John Pemberton and Asa Candler from Atlanta. John came up with this recipe. They were having a backyard barbecue one day. One of his friends grabbed a drink, accidentally drank the barbecue sauce, thinking it was a drink, and it was so delicious that it became very popular. And this guy named Asa Candler convinced John Pemberton to sell his last shares in this little recipe for $550. Now, do you know why John Pemberton sold it to him? It was actually the last shares that he could keep of this recipe, and they belonged to his son. And Asa Candler bought that recipe for $2,300 from a backyard barbecue that was honestly an accident. How many of you know who I'm talking about? John Pemberton sold those $550 worth of shares to feed his drug addiction. Now, how in the world did Asa take that and build Coca-Cola? Because he had a why, he had a dream, he had a passion, and he believed that there was a power inside of him that was what? Able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that he could ask, think, or imagine. And guys, I could go all day long. You know, there was a teenager when he was 13 years old. He was so smart and he was so bright that everybody thought he was weird. You know, they called him a nerd. He was an outcast. Everybody made fun of him. They played pranks on him. But it got so bad that his mom and dad thought that there was something literally chemically wrong with him. And so they admitted him into a psychiatric hospital. How many of you have kids? Can you imagine? I shouldn't ask that question because you're all going to say, yes, I can. But in all seriousness, can you imagine watching your 13-year-old be strapped to a table and IVs pumped into their brain, into their bloodstream with chemicals because you believe that your son or daughter is crazy? It's what happened to him because he had such a big dream. He too believed that he could change the world and that there was a power inside of him that was able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all he could ask, think, or imagine. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? Bill Gates. He told me that story years ago as me and about 8 other guys had dinner with him in Las Vegas at the Comdex convention. But you know, it's not just young folks. It's also some of us are older folks, and we face the same difficulties and the same struggles. Some of you will know about this next gentleman that I'm talking about. He had such a dream. It was so big. It was so huge that he lost everything he had. He went all in, pushed it all to the middle of the table, all the chips. He bet the farm on his dream, on his why, and he lost it. He lost his car, he lost his home, and he believed in it so much, and he was such a good salesman, by the way, that he convinced his kids and their husbands and their wives to take second and third mortgages out on their homes too, to feed his dream, to fund, to invest his dream. And guess what happened? They all got foreclosed on. Can you imagine, parents, losing your own kids' homes because you are fighting for your dream and believing in your dream to the point that you would risk your own children's home? But he did it. And so guess what his children did to him? This time the roles are reversed. They too admitted him into a psychiatric hospital at the age of 64. What would that feel like? 64 years old and having your own kids think you're crazy to the point they lock you down and force you into a mental hospital. I mean, you think you'd lose your dream, wouldn't you? Just a bit. But he went on. By the time he was 92, he passed away with assets worth with a net assets of over $2 billion. You guys know who I'm talking about, right? Isn't that amazing? You know, sometimes it feels like it's just you, doesn't it? It feels like it's just me. It's just me. I can't do it. How in the world was he able to do that? Here's why. Because he had a why. He had a dream. And he believed that there was a power inside of him that was able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that he could ask, think, or imagine. That's how he achieved it. And you guys remember the college track runner that had the accident right before a track meet one night, and he was injured so severely that he would never run track ever again the rest of his life. But he had a dream. He had a passion about track. And so he funneled that into an entrepreneurial endeavor. And he borrowed a station wagon, and he started importing Japanese sneakers and selling them at his college track meets. And his track mates spray painted the station wagon and made fun of him and laughed at him. They knocked out his mirrors and his windshields. They ridiculed him. They told him he was crazy. What are you doing making us look like fools out here? Take your station wagon and your Japanese tennis shoes back to Japan. We don't want you around here anymore. You ever felt like that? Like an outcast with your own family, your own friends? Nobody believes in you. Nobody believes in your dreams. Well, he didn't stop. You know who I'm talking about, right? Philip Knight. Is it just me, or does it seem like that's the story every single time? You see, most of us believe that the only way you build a multi-billion-dollar company or you become a billionaire is to what? Is to inherit it or marry it or maybe divorce it. But you know what I'm saying, right? But those are not the only way. And it's not just those guys. It's hundreds. It's thousands. That is the story. These are not unique. I used to think that these major household brands were Silicon Valley investments. That's where they all came from, until I started reading book after book after book after book, and I found out that all the big boys didn't do it that way. They had a dream, and they believed. You know, one of them I got to meet one time. He was actually trying to acquire one of my companies. And what a story. They call him the $25 billion man. Guys, he did not have the money to pay his payroll 1 week. So he called up Mr. Binion, the owner of the Horseshoe out in Las Vegas, and he said, I want to make a one-time bet, a high card bet with 10-to-1 odds. In other words, for those of you that are not gamblers, they're going to draw a card, and who's ever the highest wins. And he was going to place $1 million bet, and he needed $10 million from Mr. Binion. He accepted the bet. He flew out with his last $1 million. He put it down. They drew the cards. And he won. Luckily. He risked it all for his dream, for his why. And guys, I could go on and I could tell you about Black & Decker. I could tell you about Domino's Pizza. I could tell you about Wrigley Spearmint Gun. I could tell you about almost every single company that you buy goods and services from today, and their story is exactly the same. They weren't born with silver platters in their hands, and it wasn't easy for them. It didn't just happen naturally. They're exactly like you and I, exactly like us. They're crazy too. You know, sometimes I think that you have to be crazy to be successful, right? But here's the point. Number one, folks, they had a why, they had a dream, and they believed that there was a power inside of them, and I hope you're catching this, that was able to do, help me out here, exceedingly, come on, beyond all that you could ask, think, or imagine. The secret is you. You see, the secret is you believing in your dream. That's the secret. The secret is you believing in your dream. Because you're no different than any of them. If you haven't been admitted into a psychiatric hospital, if you haven't had someone knock out the windows in your cars and spray paint your car and telling you you're crazy and get out of here, we don't want you around anymore. If you actually have a car to drive, you could create the largest company in the world. I know it's hard to believe that you have what it takes. So I've got to hurry because my clock is clicking. I need 3 more minutes, Scott. But you're on the front row, so I can't get it from you. So I'm going to have to get it from you, audience. Some of you remember the story of the talents, right? There was a master who had 3 servants. Master wanted to take a long trip. He came to his 3 servants, and he gave one of them 5 talents, one of them 2 talents, one of them 1 talent. And he said, I want you to go and I want you to produce. He went away on a long trip. He came back. The one who he gave 5 to, what did he do? He got 5 more, right? He produced. The one he gave 2 to, he gave him 2 because he produced. They high-fived, belly bumped, and they started partying. The one he gave 1 to, and I'm ad-libbing, by the way, the one that he gave 1 to, the story says that he became afraid. And that he went and dug a hole in the ground and buried that so that he would have it for his master when he came back. And of course, we all know what happened, right? He came back and he gave him what he'd given him, and he kicked him in the rear and said, get out of here, you lazy, unfaithful servant. Lazy, unfaithful servant. Folks, let me tell you something. If you go back and you read this story, here's what it says. To one he gave 5, to one he gave 2, to one he gave 1. To each one he gave according to their own ability. Folks, do you know what the word talent in the Greek represents? It's not a skill set. It represented currency like the dollar, the peso. It represented opportunity. And so you could say to each one he gave these opportunities according to their own ability. You see, the fact that you're sitting here today says that you have the ability to achieve this. It doesn't matter what your religious belief is, okay? But I'm telling you, God doesn't play tricks on you. If you were given this opportunity, it's because you already have the ability to succeed. It is not a trick. But guess what? When you're given an opportunity, you are expected to what? To produce. The rest of the story said, he took the one who he had given one and he gave it to the one who what? Who had produced 5. And the story says, to he who has more shall be given, and to he who has not, that which he has shall be taken away. You know what I used to think that meant? I used to think that meant the rich get richer, the poor get poorer. And I was poor. I didn't have a very good outlook on life because it couldn't have gotten any worse. But that's not what the story means. What the story means is to he who does not produce, that which they have will be taken away, and to he or she that does produce, they will be given what they don't even deserve. You get it? I'm trying to hurry here. I'm 16 seconds over. So here's the secret. The secret is you. Viridian 2.0, really, guys, it's you. You're the secret to Viridian 2.0, and you are the secret to your success. You see, you've been given the Viridian talent. Why have you been given the Viridian talent? Somebody tell me why you've been given the Viridian talent. Because you already have the ability inside of you that is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all that you can ask, think, or imagine. That's why. That's why you've been given this opportunity. Look at your screen. You have the ability. Yes, you can do this. And you are expected to succeed. You see, that's what you've got to do when you walk away from here, is you have got to remember your dream. You've got to know your why so strong that it makes you cry, whether there's people around or nobody around. It's got to be deep down inside your soul, where if I were to wake you up at 3 a.m. in the morning and said, what's your why, you could spit it out just like that. It's that real, it's that significant. There's so much meaning behind your why that nothing will stop you from your dream. Not your kids, not your parents, not your best friends, not your enemies. Nobody will stop you until you achieve it. There's a few individuals that you remind me of. So I hope you enjoyed this quick video. Because I believe that this is Viridian 2.0, that you are Viridian 2.0.
Here's to the crazy ones, the misfits, the rebels, the troublemakers, the round pegs in the square holes, the ones who see things differently. They're not fond of rules, and they have no respect for the status quo. You can quote them, disagree with them, glorify or vilify them, but the only thing you can't do is ignore them, because they change things. They push the human race forward. And while some may see them as the crazy ones, we see genius. Because the people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones who do.
I love each and every one of you, and even if I don't know you, I mean that with all my heart. And together, we will change the world. Because there is a power inside of you, whether you want to believe it or not, that is able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all you can ask, think, or imagine. You guys have been great. We love you. Viridian 2.0, let's go!